Hi, welcome to Mixed Media Scapes from Creatively You by Webster Art Gallery. Mixed media scapes are a favorite of mine for a few reasons. For one thing, the possibilities are just so varied and many that it's a really great art piece project for anyone who wants to exercise their unique creativity. There's no drawing involved, unless you want to, so there's no feeling of intimidation there, and I just find that the results are usually really fun and whimsical. Let me stress here that while I use a specific photo and specific materials to demonstrate the idea behind this project, the goal is not to reproduce the same piece, but to explore and create something that's unique to you. I call this mixed media scapes because the idea is to use different types of scapes, landscapes, skyscapes, cityscapes, seascapes, etc., as guides or springboards. To start with, I would suggest that you find a landscape that you like. The photo I've chosen isn't a landscape per se, but I think it'll do the trick. These are bleeding hearts from our old garden in Ontario. We have since relocated provinces, and our garden now has bleeding hearts as well, but they're not as magnificent as this yet. For the background, I've decided to use a piece of pastel paper that I kept messing up on, and which was rendered useless for portraiture after some moisture spots somehow got onto it. But you can really use whatever you'd like, as long as it will hold up to glue. Some possibilities include cardboard, cardstock, Bristol board, panel, old greeting cards. Looking at the photograph, I notice that there's a light blue wash at the top. The picture is just a guideline, and I don't have to follow it exactly, but I like the blue wash, so I'm going to represent it in my art piece. I've chosen to do this with some medium blue tissue paper. I cut it out at an angle. Notice that I'm not being crazy careful with the edges, etc. Position it on the background paper to make sure that it fits, and then apply glue and glue it on. Next comes the white that the blue fades into in the photograph. I could use white tissue paper or paint or whatever, but I think an unfolded white napkin would be interesting with its texture. The napkin is too large for the space, but instead of cutting it, I decide to fold the overhanging edges under, and then the napkin too is glued down. Now for the really fun part. What I love best about doing this is that the sky's the limit. I looked over some of my bits and bobs, but ultimately decided against using any of them. I personally feel that you have to be careful about using things like beads and stick-on gems and the like in this kind of work. There's a very real chance that it could start to look tacky, in my humble opinion. I think that these items are much more suited to craft-type projects. This is actually a great thing, because it allows us to look beyond what might be considered the obvious and start exploring things that might have been overlooked otherwise. This list is by no means comprehensive, but some items that you might want to try include candy wrappers, the foil ones tend to be easier to use, pine cones, bits of fabric, string, yarn, buttons, aluminum foil, tiny pebbles, shells. The list can go on and on. I've got the background in place, so the next thing I need to do is figure out how I want to represent the leaves. I finally decide to cut some green, approximate leaf-like shapes out of newspapers. Again, you can see that I'm not really being careful to shape exact-looking leaves by any means. It becomes obvious pretty quickly that I'm not going to be able to find enough green areas in the newspaper bundle I've got, so I supplement them with some dark green cardstock. Flipping through the newspaper again, I can't find any more grass pictures or similar things, but I come across a bunch of green grapes. I like the way it looks. Okay, getting closer to the flowers themselves, but I realize that I'll need to cut out some stems for the bleeding hearts to hang from. They'll look rather odd just floating aimlessly in the air. Before getting to that, though, I decide to cut out a few darker shapes to suggest shadows among the leaves. Then my eyes fall upon some small chocolate candy cups that I've saved. I wonder how a few of them would look against the leaves. There's nothing like them in the photograph, but as the artist, I am blessed with artistic license. I think they'll look good, but of course as cups, they'd be rather difficult to flatten. I decide to cut 3 slits around the edges. Liking it so far. Ultimately, I decide that 3 cups is the right number. Now for the branches, which I think I'll cut out from brownish, beigeish areas of the newspaper. I don't want to cut too many and overwhelm the piece, and I want to make sure that they're different sizes, lengths, and shapes to lend more visual interest. Now for my favorite part. I knew from the get-go that I wanted to use buttons in this piece. Unfortunately, I only have white, off-white, and cream-colored ones, but I think they'll look better than anything else I can think of to use, so they'll have to do. I position them into place before gluing them down. I feel as though there should be one more, but where exactly to place it? Here's the finished piece. Does it look like the photograph? Well, no, not really. But can you see how the picture inspired it? I hope so. Now it's your turn to create something unique and awesome. Find a photograph that you like. Remember, it might be easier to start with a landscape. Gather up some wacky materials, and don't forget a good white glue, and let your imagination fly. I would love to see your beautiful work. Visit www.websterartgallery.com and post it to my Facebook page, or you can just send it over email if you'd like to. Don't forget to subscribe to my mailing list at www.websterartgallery.com. You'll get exclusive member goodies, promos, content, and updates, like the latest videos or contests from Webster Art Gallery. This is Monica C. Webster. Thanks for watching.